Welcome back to another episode of Selling Point. Today our topic is listen up. There's a guy who came home one night from work and the house was dark. He walked in and he flipped on a light in one room, nobody there. He flipped on a light in another room, nobody there. He walks in the kitchen and he sees a note on the refrigerator door that says, "I can't take it anymore. This is not working. I'm going to my mother's house." So he opens the door and there's ice cubes in the top. He opens the bottom door and there's cold beer in the bottom. So he shuts both the doors and he says, "I don't get it. I don't think there's a problem here." And he walks off, not really understanding what just took place. So, most people, especially people in sales, think that they're a pretty good listener, but many of us aren't. And so we want to talk about that today. And in the time that we've got, let me just touch on a few points that will help you become a better listener. And you got to remember, first off, that there's a big difference in hearing and listening. A noise in the room you hear, but you're not necessarily really listening and paying attention to it. So we want to focus on what we call active listening, which really helps that out. So here's a few points for you to remember. One of the things that happens with salespeople is while their customer or prospect is talking or answering a question or speaking to them, the salesperson is typically thinking about what he's going to say next or what he's going to ask next, and therefore the real meaning or the real wording of whatever is being said just goes right over his head. So you don't understand that. So my best tip for you there is to just stay focused on your prospect and just echo back to them occasionally some of the things that they say, and that's a great way for you to be a better listener, and it's also a good way to build confidence between you and your prospect or your customer, because they'll really know, gosh, he really is listening. Secondly is body language. Body language is very important. In another episode, we'll talk about some specifics about body language, but you got to remember that it's just as important as the spoken word. So look at your prospect while you're listening to them, and you'll pick up a lot of things just with their eye movements, with their way they tilt their body one way or another. And like I say, we'll talk more about the specifics of that later. But body language is just as important as the words that you say, because somebody may tell you one thing and their body language tells you something else, and typically the body language is going to be the truth. The third thing is eye contact. It's so important because it shows that you're paying attention to your prospect. So listen to them both with your ears and your eyes. Because when you make eye contact with someone, that's just a very rare thing. And I don't mean stare a hole in them, glance away occasionally, but focus on that prospect, and that shows that they're important to you, and it also shows that they're being treated importantly. And so to prove the point here, I want to ask you a few questions. And I want to give you just a few seconds to jot down your answer, and we'll have a little fun with this, and you'll determine how good a listener you really are. So I've got 8 questions here, and so here we go. Here's the first question: how many 4-cent stamps are in a dozen? Well, it's 12, because a dozen is 12 of anything. It's not just stamps. The second question is, the average man has how many birthdays? The answer is just one. That's the day that he's born. The rest of them are just anniversaries. The third question, some months have 30 days, some have 31, but how many months have 28? All of them do. It's not just February. All of them do. Some months just have more than others. The fourth question, if you have 2 coins that total 55 cents and one of them is not a nickel, what are the 2 coins? Well, the answer is a nickel and half a dollar. One of them is not a nickel, but the other one is. Number 5, is it legal if a man marries his widow's sister? Well, if the wife is a widow, then the dude is dead, and I don't think he's going to be marrying anybody. The 6th question is, do they have a 4th of July in England? Of course they do. There's a 4th of July on every calendar of every country. It's just not celebrated like it is here in America. How many of each animal species did Moses take with him on the ark? Now, you don't have to be a Bible scholar to know that it wasn't Moses. Moses is the guy that wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, but he's not the guy that was on the ark. That was Noah. And number 8, if you had one match in a room where there was a kerosene lamp, an oil heater, and a candle, which would you light first? Probably would be a good idea to strike the match first. Now, you might be sitting there saying, okay, smart bud, what's your point? My point is that in many cases, you heard me read the question and your mind immediately jumped to an answer that made sense to you, but if you'd have really listened to the question, you probably would have got them all, if not all, most of them right. So my advice to you is that if you missed a few of those, that should tell you that you probably could spruce up your listening a little bit. So one way that you can do that is pick up a copy of my book, Sell is Not a 4-Letter Word. You can get that at my website, RobinsonTrainingsolutions.com. And there's a section in there about listening and about hearing and about the difference. It goes into much greater detail along with the body language that will really help you to do a much better job of becoming an active listener. So until next time, we'll see you later. This is Doug.